Okay, good evening. This talk is on the myth of It's really a presentation for the penny saver. The whole thing comes out to a great teaching and looking for a great teacher. So after we get the teaching, we should be able to describe the teacher and see whether we can find someone to fill the bill. All right, that's where we're going. So, going into the myth of as we go through it, Plato concludes with a special kind of need for a certain kind of teaching, a certain kind of teacher, and that's how it culminates. So let's start. First of all, as you know, the myth of is from the Republic. What is the need for the myth? There is a great need for the myth, and it comes out of the great problem of Plato's Republic, which I'll present here very simply. In Book 2, it says there's a great and difficult problem in deciding about the nature of justice, because up to this point, he says, everybody's talking about the idea of justice in terms of its consequences and its benefits. And he's been urged to talk about justice just in itself. And they, Glaucon, people there, give him a challenge. And this is the challenge that's called the problem of the two lives. One man, brilliant, powerful, courageous. He gains the greatest reputation for justice. He gains all the benefits and the honors for gaining that reputation. He fools even his family. That is to say, he has very carefully and cleverly created a mask. And that mask is the appearance of justice. But in reality, everything he does is to benefit himself and no one else. Therefore, he's the pure, unjust man. But nobody can see it. He's able to fool everyone, and Plato then adds another dimension to this, which is very important. Even the gods are fooled. He is so clever and brilliant. And therefore, they're waiting to get him after he dies and have a great banquet in the heavens, for he has fooled everyone. On the other hand, there's another man here who is exactly the opposite. He is just, but to everyone he appears unjust. Therefore, he gets absolutely no benefits from being just, no honors, no fame, and the gods in the heavens are waiting for him, and they're going to give it to him when he dies. Therefore, they challenge Socrates, therefore, let's strip away from this argument of justice all considerations other than one. Show the effect that justice has on the soul of man, and show the effect it has in such a way, rationally, in such a way, that we can see that we would rather be this man than this man, given all the conditions of the argument. That's the argument of the Republic. What does he have to show? He has to show that it's better to be the just man under this condition simply because the effect it has on the soul is of such a nature that once seen for what it is in itself, anyone rational would much prefer to be this than this. That's the problem of the two lives. Socrates says, well, to do this, it's so difficult to see the soul. The soul is such a small thing, difficult to see. He says, therefore, I'm going to have to try to create an analogy with the soul and for the soul, and that will be the city-state. Therefore, he creates a city-state from its inception to its flowering and its decline. And that will be used as an analogy for the soul. Now, what will that do? You see, because in the second book, Socrates describes the state. It's rustic, it's simple, has very few luxuries, small community, they maintain their own existence, they have no drive for greed, power, or possessions beyond their needs. And Glaucon looks at that state and he says, Socrates, that's a pig state. Only a pig would want to live there. There's no luxuries, there's no couches. He says, oh, we must add that, that's right. He says, we must design a state in high fever. You see, because he has to show at the fullest development of the state, justice. And in its decline, you must therefore discover the unjust man. And therefore he creates a state that can be shown to go through all of these kinds of changes to create a sense of justice in that state, and then its necessary decline to the unjust state. And therefore, this will appear as the just man, and this will, of course, appear as the unjust man, and he is the tyrant. All right, the terrible tyrant. And this, of course, is the philosopher king, or sometimes called philosopher guardian. Therefore, we have this construction of the state. It goes from 3, 4, and book 5. Then he goes into the dynamics of the soul and the cognitive functions in 6 and 7, and the allegory of the cave and the upper world, the divided line. And then from book 8 on, which is the decline, right, 8, 9, and 10. Well, now look here. The key part to this story is not whether or not he can create an image of a just man. He has to do more than that, remember. He has to try to show us in some way what happens to the soul of man, of each of these men, upon death. That's the function of the myth of Er. That's what it's doing. So let's take a look now at the myth of Er. Simply, there is a battle. Battle is over. Many people were killed. And Er, that's his name, he was thought to have been slain, and his body was left on the ground. 10 days elapsed, and finally they pick up his body. Did not seem to decay, but nonetheless they put it on a funeral pyre, and they were about to light the fire on the funeral pyre. I said, wait a minute, I'm still alive. I have visited the next world, and I've been told to come back and to tell you my story of the next world. That is, to what happens to the soul after death. That's what we get here. What happens to the soul after death, and that's the myth of Er. So, we have a geography. Very interesting geography.